New York State Attorney General Letitia James sues the city of New York, the mayor, and the police department's leaders on Thursday, alleging that officers had committed civil rights abuses for years, including at protests last summer over the death of George Floyd, and seeking the appointment of an independent monitor. That's what she's looking for, an independent monitor. What is the actual job description of the Attorney General's office? As head of Department of Law, the Attorney General is both the people's lawyer and the state chief legal officer. As the people's lawyer, the Attorney General serves as guardian of the legal rights of the citizens of New York, its organizations, and its natural resources. In fulfilling the duties of the state's chief legal counsel, the Attorney General not only advises the executive branch of state government, but also defends actions and proceedings on behalf of the state. The Attorney General serves all New Yorkers in numerous matters affecting their daily lives. The Attorney General's office is charged with the statutory and common law powers to protect consumers and investors, charitable donors, the public health and environment, civil rights, and the rights of wage earners and businesses across the state. The Attorney General's authority also includes the activities and investigations of the State Organized Crime Task Force and Medical Fraud Unit. While the Attorney General acts independently of the governor of or a state agency may request the Attorney General undertake specific criminal investigations and prosecutions. The legal functions of the Department of Law are divided primarily into 5 major divisions: appeals and opinions, state counsel, criminal justice, economic and social justice. Over 1,800 employees, including over 700 attorneys, as well as forensic accountants, legal assistants, scientists, investigators, and support staff serve in the office of the Attorney General in many locations across New York State. The landmark lawsuit filed in federal court names Mayor Bill de Blasio, Police Commissioner Dermot Shea, and Chief of Department Terrence Monahan as defendants and outlines years of excessive force and false arrests, most recently during racial justice protests last year stemming from the killing of George Floyd, a black man, while in Minneapolis police custody, James said. As the demonstrators continued, the very thing that being protest, aggressive actions of law enforcement, was on public display, James said in a news conference announcing the lawsuit. It marked the first time in history that the state attorney general has sued the police department, James' office said. James wants a monitor to oversee the police department's policing tactics at future protests. That's all she wants. And a court order to declare that the police policies and practices and the department used during protests last year were unlawful. Let's read that again. James wants a monitor to oversee the department's policing tactics at future protests, and a court order to declare that the policies and practices that the department used during protests last year were unlawful. She is also seeking reform to address what she described as problematic policies and training failures that are outlined in the complaint. The police department is already under federal monitor overseeing reforms after its stop and frisk policy was declared unconstitutional by a federal judge. So they already got a monitor. And she's just filing a lawsuit. All this lawsuit is for them to get another monitor. How many monitors do we need? James was tasked by Governor Andrew Cuomo with investigating the police department's handling of protests sparked by Floyd's death. So Miss James didn't even do this lawsuit on her own. She was tasked by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Could that be the reason why this lawsuit is full of crap? Ms. James didn't want to bring this lawsuit. She was told to bring this lawsuit forth by the governor. Why? Not to actually punish the police officers that committed crimes against New York citizens, but to pretend as if they were doing something, because we already learned that the police department already has monitors as a result of the federal decision that stop and frisk was unlawful. So why do they need another monitor? Governor Cuomo wants to run for president, and he wants to make it look like he saw what happened to Bloomberg. So when he gets on that political stage, he wants to be able to say, I got the first female black attorney general to investigate and to bring forth a civil suit against the NYPD, knowing that that civil suit does not bring any charges or cause any disciplinary action or cause any penalties, punishments for the police officers who committed assaults and every other crime. That's why we are seeking systemic reforms to the NYPD and the installation of a monitor to oversee the NYPD's policing tactics in future protests and to ensure that they are complying with the law, James said. With today's lawsuit, this long-standing pattern of brutal and illegal force ends. Among other things, the lawsuit alleges that from May 28, 2020 to December 11, 2020, officers of various ranks repeatedly, without justification, used batons, fist strikes, pepper spray, and other physical force against protesters. Miss James, why aren't you bringing these specific officers up on charges? James said the officers also used bicycles and crowd control tactic known as kettling or containment, which she says caused significant harm. Miss James, why aren't you charging the specific officers with their crimes? In October, the New York Civil Liberties Union and Legal Aid Society sued the city on behalf of 11 protesters who said that they were assaulted by abused by police and that their civil rights were violated. 2 months later, New York City's Department of Investigation found that the police department used excessive force during the protest across the city. So you mean someone's already sued? So why are you suing again, Miss James? De Blasio had asked for the investigation after videos showing police officers dousing protesters, elected officials, and journalists with chemical irritants, shoving a woman to the ground, and in one instance, driving police vehicles into them. Miss James, why aren't you charging those specific police officers with their crimes? Legal observers, medics, and other essential workers were among those detained and arrested without probable cause, James said Thursday. Those arrests, she said, were in direct violation with the executive order that was issued by de Blasio. So if you defy a direct violation by the mayor, isn't that a crime? Miss James, why aren't you charging these specific police officers with the crimes that they committed? It's on tape. You mean to tell me you don't know who they are? In response to the lawsuit, de Blasio said that he met with James on Wednesday and that they share the goal of pushing for major police reforms. Really? Because it sounds like to me you guys just want monitors. You just want somebody to stand around and watch you commit crimes against black people and not punish anyone. And it doesn't sound like you want any punishment. You just want monitors. I couldn't agree more that there are pressing reforms that must and will be made this year, including the major discipline reforms announced by my Obama Foundation pledge. All 30 recommendations from the DOI and the Law Department reports and more, de Blasio said. That work is critical and it is happening right now. What? Monitors? And who are these monitors? People from the Justice Department that already show that they commit injustices against us? Who are these monitors? Just people standing around watching. A court process and added bureaucracy of a federal monitor would not speed up this work. What work? What work, Mr. de Blasio? There is no time to waste, and we will continue to press forward. If there is no time to waste, why aren't you charging the people, the police officers who committed crimes against the citizens of New York? Why aren't you charging them with their crimes? A spokesperson for the police department said it welcomes reform and has embraced the recent suggestions by both the city's Department of Investigation and the city's law department. But that, as the mayor has said, adding another layer does not speed up the process of continued reform, which we have embraced and led the way on. I'm going to ask this question again. Why aren't you charging the officers who committed crimes against black people? Patrick Lynch, the president of the Police Benevolent Association, blamed a failure of New York City's leadership for sending police to unprecedented protests and violent riots with no plan, no strategy, and no support. Looked like they had a plan and a strategy, which was to violate the human rights of the people at the protests. That sounds like that was a strategy to me. They should be forced to answer for the resulting chaos instead of pointing fingers at cops on streets and ignoring the criminals who attacked us with bricks and firebombs, Lynch said, all of which have been charged, Mr. Lynch. See, the people who did those things were charged, but the police officers who committed crimes against those people were not. Not only that, they still have their jobs. The lawsuit states protesters, many of whom were never charged with any crime, were merely exercising their First Amendment rights, suffered concussions, broken bones, cuts, bruises, and other physical injuries. So if these people suffered assaults, why weren't the people that committed the assaults on these persons charged with the crimes of committing assaults? Why are they just given monitors? Multiple people spoke virtually during the news conference, recounting abuse they said they experienced at the hand of officers. The NYPD and its senior leaders failed to address this long-standing pattern of abuse by not properly training, supervising, and disciplining officers to prevent misconduct, despite knowing and publicly admitting that it violated the rights of New Yorkers, James said. So if they publicly admitted that they violated the rights of New Yorkers, why aren't they charged with doing so? Because if you or I were to violate the rights of another New Yorker, we would be charged for doing so. So Miss Letitia James, ma'am, hello, hi, how you doing? Sister girl, black girl magic, first black attorney general of New York State. Why aren't you using your authority to charge people? Why are you filing civil suits for monitors? Let me finish this article. No one is above the law, not even individuals charged with enforcing it, James said. If they're not above the law, why aren't you charging them like you would do to anyone else? It's past time, she said, for meaningful change. It doesn't sound like you're looking for meaningful change, Ms. James. It looks like you're only looking for monitors. James said that she does not think that every police officer is problematic and that she has family members and close friends whom she deeply respects who are current and former officers on the force. We all do. But if they commit a crime, they should be charged because you would charge us. I know that many officers have the best intentions to protect New Yorkers and bring communities together, she said. But we have a problem that's bigger than any one officer, and this is an institutional, systematic problem that must be addressed with proper training, with proper protocols and discipline of those who would violate the law. Man, where is the discipline? I didn't hear no discipline yet. All I heard is about was monitors. I didn't hear not one single plan that you laid out for some discipline for these people, these police officers who violated the rights of New Yorkers. In a joint statement, the NYCLU and Legal Aid Society said, "We hope this will be the beginning of a serious reckoning over police violence and militarized use of force against protesters, especially people of color, and a check on the impunity many officers has come to see as their right." Legal aid attorney Corey Staunton applauded the lawsuit. Why? It ain't doing nothing. We are not applauding this lawsuit. I see it for the fallacy that it is, for the waste of time that it is, for the political show that it is, for... Let me stop. The NYPD has shown itself to be really intransient in changing deeply rooted practices, Staunton said in an interview Thursday. We see that the stop and frisk litigation, which has been under federal monitorship for over 6 years now. So we've already had a monitor for over 6 years. What has that gotten us? They're still violating our rights, and they're still not being punished for it. There are still significant racial disparities in the stop and frisk policy and ongoing problems getting officers to document stops, which is essential to understanding the scope of the problem, Staunton said. What is encouraging about the lawsuit, Staunton said, is that it brings into play the power of state government in trying to bring about change that sends a very strong signal to the city's leadership, to police leadership, that there is a deep, deep problem that requires change. Governor Cuomo has plans, has his eye on the prize, which is the presidency. He watched when Bloomberg was called to the carpet by us for his stop and frisk policies when he tried to run for president. So now he is setting the political stage for when he does run, so he can say, hey, I got the first female black attorney general to bring a civil suit so I can add more monitors to the NYPD, not punish any of the NYPD, not disciplinary action for any of the NYPD, not convictions, not even indictments. This is all political theater. Ms. James, this wasn't even Ms. James' idea. This was Governor Cuomo's idea. So, Ms. James, what really is behind what you're doing here? January 6th, Assemblyman Nick Perry of Assembly District 58 put forth an act to amend the public health law in relation to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to public health. Meaning, if they feel that you or your family member is a positive case for you know what, they can come in your house and come and get you or your family member. In closing, Mr. Perry, we do not accept your bill. We voted for you, right? The people voted for you. The people are now going to call you up on the phone and tell you that we do not want this. If you put this forth, you will be putting it forth on your own without us, because we are telling you what we feel and what we want, and you are supposed to be our elected representatives. So represent us and snatch this bill down.